Unfortunately, as freelancers, we have to deal with some of the worst kinds of people, and the kinds of people that send nonsense like this. So I got scammed on Craigslist. Almost. In hindsight, it was really just kind of poor on my part not to see this coming, but at the time I was really desperate for work, so I just fell right into the trap. But thankfully, I didn't get fully caught and got out at the last second, but for me to tell that story, we have to backtrack a bit. So earlier during the summer, I was trying to figure out how to get my name out there more as a photographer in the Boston area. Tried to put my name out on Craigslist, put up a few ads for different kinds of photography. Just hoping to see, okay, maybe someone might get back to me on this for a little short wedding, small wedding, because all the big ones were getting canceled. So I threw my name out there and waited to see if I got anything back. I had one individual answer me, agreed to use me, gave me a date, sent me a check with a deposit, got the check, and started to notice that the check was a few $1,000s over the amount that I had asked for as a deposit, but I didn't think anything of it. Deposited in my bank account and didn't think anything else. So right after I deposited, they were trying to explain to me that their boss was cutting them a check to help with their wedding, but if for some reason they could only cut one check, and that check was going to include my payment and the payment for the DJ. That's when things start to feel odd to me. I called my bank, explained to them what was going on, what was happening. They got back to me and said, this is a common scam that they see all the time apparently. And it's something where they try to get you to transfer money over to them without actually giving you any money in return. So in my situation, I actually turned out to be perfectly fine. Basically what happened was the check bounced because, of course, I didn't transfer this person any money, so I didn't end up losing any money overall. All I did was, for safety precautions, I made a new checking account for my services for photography. And then they followed up with some very angry and aggressive texts because they were starting to realize that I wasn't going to transfer them anything. And then they kept trying to make it that I really needed to pay them when they really were never going to pay me or have me do their wedding in the first place. And the reason they were getting really upset was because the transfer is the last step of the scam process, because once they get you to transfer whatever amount of money they're supposed to pay the DJ over to them, you can't get that back. You might be able to fight it a little bit, but once you hit send on whatever transfer service you're going to use, there's absolutely no way you're guaranteed to get all of your money back. So in the end, they sent you a check that's going to bounce, expecting you to pay them before you see that it bounces in your account. So they get really aggressive with you once you deposit that check that's going to bounce and then you haven't paid them yet, because they're trying to get paid or stealing your money from you before you realize it's a scam. So if you want to stand up to people like this who are trying to take advantage of you on the internet, I'm going to run down a few of the key flags you need to be paying attention to when you're trying to find ads and works and even clients through places like Craigslist or anywhere else on the internet. So the warning signs that someone's trying to scam you. Now I'm going to kind of rank these between up to yellow, orange, and then to red, because it can come off as a scam, but sometimes you have to give the individual maybe the benefit of the doubt if they're trying to not give someone their information right off the bat. So the first one would be, what's the email look like? And I'm talking about where it's coming from. Because for example, I've got my own email. It has my name and company at Gmail, and I have my personal one, which has my name at Gmail. So look at that kind of title. If it's a bunch of random numbers and letters all mashed together from some various email format, that's a caution flag. Now, if it's coming from a site like Craigslist, maybe it's like the email that Craigslist gives them, so they can't change it at all. So that's when you kind of, it's a little iffy, like it's not super concerning, but something you need to be paying attention to. Number two, a fake name or an alias. Something like a John Doe. I've gotten this one twice. Tamara Burns. Now there might be a Tamara Burns out there that is trying to find a photographer through Craigslist, but the fact that I've gotten her twice from two different emails, she might be a fake name too. So that's just something you need to be aware of. Now you have to keep in mind, this person might be using not their real name, so if they're super secure or very concerned about their identity, and they really don't want to put it out there, they might use a fake name to start off, and maybe they might explain that in an email, but it's just one of those other things you need to keep track of. A third thing to look for, which is a little bit more concerning when you're being reached out to be a photographer or some sort of freelancer, is if the email has really poor grammar. Now, they might not be able to speak perfect English, but if you can look at an email and see, okay, maybe a machine wrote this, a robot wrote this, or the person really doesn't have a firm understanding of how to use the English language, that might be a red flag, because most likely the people trying to reach out to you, or the people you want to be contacting to do freelancing jobs, know how to write an email properly using proper English grammar to a contractor or to a freelancer to get them to do some work for them. A fourth thing to look for is you might get these emails, everything might be aligned, they might be proper, but maybe the location they've given you is very vague. Like they've given you a city, but maybe no street address. Maybe they've given you a date, but no time, because these scammers are trying to be so vague that in the information that they give you seems like you're getting a legitimate job, but in the reality, they're just trying to throw locations and times at you to make you think that it's legit when in fact it's not. A fifth thing to look for now, it's a little red, this is a real red flag, where there's no real way of personally contacting them. What is 100% way to make sure it's accurate is for you to do a video call with a potential client to see them face to face, hear their voice, see what they look like when they're talking, so that way when you do eventually show up, you know who that person is, you've talked to them before. The problem is, they might not want, if it's a scammer, they probably won't give it to you. They'll want to try to give you a vague number to call that doesn't line up with their actual name or location. They're going to try to make that super like iffy, so that you might think that you're getting like an actual contact number to call, but it's a fake number and you won't get any sort of response. The sixth thing, at least like so far, these are the 6 things that I've noticed is, let's say you do end up thinking that this is legit, you get to the point where you've given them a number that you need for your deposit, you've got some sort of date locked down, some sort of vague location, and then they send you a check. Now when you get the check, you want to pay very close attention to it. One, where is the check coming from? Sometimes they'll send you an envelope that doesn't even have a return address. That's a huge red flag. Maybe if they do have a return address, make sure it matches up. Like if they say, for example, they're from one state and then the mail or letter comes from a different state, that's a red flag. And then when you open up the check, look at where the check is coming from. If the check is coming from even a different location, then that's an even bigger red flag. And one of the biggest things is if the check is even coming from the person who they claims to be. Every single fake check I've gotten, it comes from some company with some name that's not even the same name as the person I was going back and forth with. So those are 3 red flags and one little tip. For example, the one I got, the check, the first one was no return address. The second one was from Florida. The check was from Chicago and the person claimed to be from New Hampshire. So it's just like, duh, this is clearly a scam, and I'm gonna keep pushing this person on to see how far they go with this. So if you go through all those 6 like warning flags and you're still unsure, this might seem legit, this might not seem legit, you've got the person on the phone, but you're still a little back and forth, still a little iffy on it, make sure you get a legitimate email from them and then send them an invoice, maybe through PayPal electronically, to pay you a part of your deposit early. So that way, if they pay it, you legitimately get paid, and then you actually might have a client to work with, and then try to get them on the phone, try to get some sort of connection with them. If they don't pay it, then it's a scam. And then you can just completely ignore them, ignore all the emails, whatever they're sending you, because they're just trying to steal your money at that point, and they're gonna try to be really aggressive. Or they might try to really hit you sentimentally just to play on emotions. They might try to frame it around like, oh, they're somewhere and someone's passing away, or you can't talk to someone right now because of reasons that really just get you emotionally invested in their story. So you need to just be very black and white. If they're not gonna pay you, then move on, forget it. So I hope this advice helps. It's not a fun topic to talk about, but the reality is it's out there, and unfortunately, freelancers and small creators and people like me and also like you can fall into this trap. So you just need to be aware of what you're doing and who you're talking to before you let the dollar signs just blur your vision. And that's what happened to me. I was really desperate for a job. I got an offer. I thought I was about to finally get paid for my first official gig. And it turns out it was just a scam that I almost got caught in. So basically, take your time, be careful of who you're talking to and what they're promising on the internet, and best of luck. And as always, let's recap.
Bye.